Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. With the return of Horrific Visions, players have a brand new opportunity to not only collect a variety of different rewards, but also to gear out their characters using the masks within Visions in order to upscale the difficulty, but also to upgrade all of your obtainable rewards. Every single mask you enable does make the run harder, however, doing at least a bare minimum of 5 mask run allows players to get the most amount of gear out of Visions specifically. We're talking about hero track armors that can drop from Visions, hero track weapons that can be purchased directly, but also a source of solo, grindable, farmable Gilded Crests. Not a lot, but at least it's a source that you can do on your own without needing a dungeon group for a Mythic Plus. Outside of it, there's also certain mount rewards that are linked with a 5 mask run, but also you get a ton of mementos from applying 5 masks to a single run, which allows you to buy up all of the items on the vendor much quicker than ever before. However, doing a current run within Stormwind is quite difficult. The current set of masks we have active it's kind of like the hard mode version of this run, which I did want to showcase you how to do one if you are trying to challenge yourself within Visions. But if you just wait a little bit longer once Augremar is available, you'll be able to get a much easier mask combination in order to farm 5 mask Visions super easily. However, for this video, I did want to go over a guide, going over through some of the tips as to how you can make those 5 mask runs more successful, but also showcase you my routing and show you how I did the hard mode version of Stormwind with the current set of 5 masks in case you're trying to challenge yourself with Horrific Visions before we get the reset to Augremar. As always, if you guys want to see more videos for War Within or more guides for Horrific Visions, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. Now, when trying to do a 5 mask run, like maybe as a preparation for an 8 mask run, or if you're just trying to farm a bunch of currency from Visions, the best 5 masks are going to be things like Burn Bridge, Dark Imagination, Nemesis, which spawns elites, which basically free sanity regen, Vengeance, which by itself isn't bad as long as you don't combine it with Multitudes, and Daredevil, which does hit your sanity a little harder, but most sanity mechanics in Visions can be, for the most part, avoided. That one is not bad by itself, especially when we have a bigger pull of sanity, which gives you pretty much a pretty big leeway. Those are the best 5 masks run as a 5 mask run, though if you wait a little longer until Augremar is available, then you'll be able to unlock those to have an easier time. However, if you are trying to do a current mask run in Stormwind, trying to get those 5 mask run out of the way as soon as possible, you're dealing with Dark Imagination, which isn't bad at all, but then Long Night to impact your sanity, Pain to give you more madness, which is super annoying to deal with, Multitudes as well as Vengeance is a bad combo in some cases because you have more enemies and they buff each other, but you do gain a significant bit amount of corrupted mementos, but enemies are also quite tough as well. So this is like the hardest combo that you can have for a 5 mask run possible, which I am going to go over later my actual run throughout Stormwind. If you're trying to do this right now before we get Augremar, like if you're just trying to get that part of the achievement out of the way and then do maybe the Augremar side of the achievement whenever that becomes available, it definitely is a difficult run. The longer you wait, the more upgrades you get, the more masks you get, the easier those 5 mask runs are going to be. So if you're just somebody who doesn't want challenges out of Visions, literally just wait until you get some more masks from the other side of Visions. Now, another part is, should you run Sorodormi? And the short answer is no. Sorodormi, I think, is actually a really good companion. They're basically like Bran. They can tank, heal, and DPS, and they're very effective at all these things. What's good about running with Sorodormi is enemies will actually target Sorodormi pretty aggressively with some spells. And certain enemies, like bosses, will actually focus him down, especially as a tank mode. So you have like the caster enemy, the mini boss in the mage quarter. He will try to polymorph Sorodormi and even use the channel ability on the Sorodormi. This means you're not taking direct sanity damage, so in some cases it can actually be very helpful. However, because we don't have all the upgrades for our Visions, we're really pressed for time when trying to do a Stormwind run, and Sorodormi just adds way too much extra additional health to all enemies in a Vision since it counts like an additional player in your group, so everything scales up to a 2-player party. Whether they tank, heal, or DPS, it's actually going to have different scaling on those enemies. Because of this, because you're pressed for time, it's actually better to run solo, at least right now, just so you can cleave down enemies very quickly. I think later down the line, once we have all upgrades, Sorodormi is actually going to be helpful for dealing and cheesing some of the boss and mini-boss mechanics, but right now I wouldn't recommend it, especially if you have any decent gear on a character. I think under-gear players may get some value out of Sorodormi, but if you have gear, it's actually faster to just cleave him down very quickly, just to make runs as quick as possible. Now, another thing to note here is in Visions when trying to do a 5 mask run, especially if you're doing the hard mode version with the current Stormwind setup, and the worst mask combination are the potions. Potions are a bit RNG in terms of where they spawn, and there are definitely some places I think that are going to be the best when it comes to sweeping for potions, like Cathedral, when you're doing the Dwarven District. There's a lot of potions as you make your way through the Old Town. There's good spots for Trade District. The only place for Stormwind, at least, I want to look for potions is in the Mage Quarter, but all the other early areas are generally really good for potions. Early on, you'll find a body at the start of your vision, and next to that corpse will be one of the potions. The potion next to the corpse is a bad potion that damages your sanity. But when you know which potion is bad, you also know which potions are good. Basically, the bad potion is the only bad potion, and every other potion is a buff of sorts. Certain potions, depending on what bad potion you get, will be the good potion that actually restores sanity instead. And those will be your highest priority potions that you'll want to sip on as soon as you need to regain any sanity. So if, let's say, the red potion is bad for you, that means the good potion is the sanity restoration. If blue is bad, then purple is good. If purple is bad, then the black vial is good. If the black vial is the bad potion, then the green one is good. If green is bad, then red is good. And every other potion that isn't part of this chart is basically a buff potion to either decrease the damage you take, increase your movement speed, or give you a bit of a fire breath ability, which are not necessary, but I think it's worth keeping them up, especially if you could chain those potions duration so they never fall off, so you never get the negative debuffs of those potions. Now, outside of this, though, I do have some routes that I do want to recommend for all of you. If you are doing the Stormwind run for Visions, whether we're talking 5 mask or like 8 mask in the future, I think the best one is going to be to go through Stormwind, Cathedral, and then pick up whatever buffs you have, like the Armory buff, then there's a Bear Rug. Those buffs I think are worth grabbing as soon as possible. And then, first thing I should do, or what I would do, is do in Stormwind the Mage Quarter. It is the toughest area by far. Very difficult final boss, lots of difficult enemies, and even very difficult elites together with some of the different madnesses that are available every single week in Stormwind. So this one I would do immediately. If, let's say, you're struggling through the Mage Quarter, or can't do it fast enough, or feel like you're running out of sanity, then I would just reset your run and do it again. But if you can blaze through the Mage Quarter, get the difficult part out of the way, then it's perfect. There's also an enemy patrolling outside of the Trade District as you make your way towards Mage Quarter, which is a toy maker with a bunch of toys protecting him. But if you drop down a toy train set on the floor, those bot toys around the toy maker actually get debuffed. They don't have as much health while the toy train set is active. That's so hard to say 5 turns fast. But then it just kind of leaves the toy maker casting a long spell which you could just stun or interrupt, preventing them from doing anything. They just stand there casting a very long spell and you can just beat on them and get free sanity out of the toy maker. But after you do Mage Quarter, well, essentially what I try to do is try to rush through it as quickly as possible. And I will go over my detailed run a little bit later, but try to get through it as quick as you can, maybe burning 1 sanity orb. From there, for Stormwind, I think the route is very simple. Doing Dwarven District, getting the buffs there, then going to Old Town. There's 2 elites so you can collect a bunch of sanity from there, and then finish it up with Trade District, taking the port to Alaria, taking out Alaria. And I think Stormwind is actually a very, very straightforward run for the most part, as long as you get the hard stuff out of the way, though we'll be doing basically the same thing with the Orgrimmar run as well. Now, this is going to be more notes for the Orgrimmar vision whenever that comes around, but the first thing I would do is, out of Valley of Strength, there will be a blacksmith over in the left side of the building where you can get a buff very, very quickly. You can check to see if he's up. If he is not, you can just move on. First thing I would do is kind of like the Mage District, the hard area. I would do Valley of Wisdom immediately. You go in, there's an elite to kill, there's a bunch of enemies for you to slay to fill up a bar. 2 elites that are both fairly easy to dodge, more or less, so it's more or less free sanity. But then the mini-boss at the end of that one can sometimes cause a bit of trouble. Spawns a lot of ads, makes a bunch of orbs, does a big frontal ability, but if you can get through that one, I think it's really, really quick. Afterwards, I head over to the Valley of Spirits, which is an easy area that you can blaze through very quickly. If there's a rare over by the huts, this usually can give you a movement speed buff, but also a haste buff, which allows you to zoom out of here and make it over to the drag very, very quickly. In the drag, you basically run through it and then takes you into the Valley of Honor, which I think is one of the harder areas. Rex or boss in particular on PTR was kind of difficult. That one you'll want to save cooldowns for, and you're essentially just trying to time your cooldowns for some of the more difficult enemies and then slaying all of the fodder enemies whenever you don't have cooldowns available, which gives you, after you slay Rexar, a totem that takes you all the way back to the start of Valley of Strength. Go in, kill Thrall, and then you're good to go. That's more or less the route that I would take when it comes to Orgrimmar runs. Now, if you are trying to do the route that I'm doing right now with the current setup for mass installment, that's essentially what I'm going to do is exactly that. I'm trying to rush the mage tower as soon as possible, pick up whatever buffs I have in cathedral, but I'm mostly just trying to zoom right through it to take down the first elite portal keeper in the mage district. And then I'll work my way through all of the other portals, trying to take on the big elite once I have some cooldowns and trinkets available. And I'm trying to be very, very efficient with my time. I'm not slowing down in the mage district to drink any potions whatsoever. I'm also ignoring them, trying to get through it as quickly as possible. And I'll usually use one orb right before I encounter the actual mini-boss, the mage. As a rogue, you can use things like Vanish in order to kind of disrupt the casting of the boss. I like to do that on Polymer just so he stops casting, starts casting again. If you are going to be doing that, make sure you're standing right in the boss's hitbox. Otherwise, you could like de-aggro and then despawn and have to respawn. And then you have to do the fight all over. So be very, very careful in Vanishes if you're rogue and every other class. Hopefully you have enough kicks in order to deal with both casts. Afterwards, you do Dwarven District, which is very straightforward and not really notable. Check to see, make sure that the house with mines, if it's available and if it's active, make sure you make your way through the mines because the buff you get from there is like a 10% damage buff, which is fantastic for clear runs quickly. Otherwise, you just try to get through Dwarven District very, very fast. Very straightforward area, not too bad on your sanity drain passively, and both the elite and the boss give you quite a bit of sanity to head into the old town. In the old town, I basically am gunning for the elites immediately, trying to make my way to them as quickly as possible. And in the old town is another great spot for you to drop in an orb. I usually like to drop in an orb and then pull mobs into the orb as I'm recovering sanity and a bit of health, just so I can keep clearing through a little bit of old town while also being able to get myself a reset on my resources. And then from there, make sure you have some sort of a cooldown saved up for Shaw as well as the mini boss before the area with Shaw. Like maybe send a trinket at the mini boss and then actual cooldowns and a potion on Shaw if that's what you want to do. But getting through the area as quickly as possible should be a top priority. From there, I head over to the trade district and I take out the elite as soon as I can. Try to make sure you take him out as soon as you have any cooldowns available. And then from there, kind of roam around trade district, taking out a bunch of other enemies while my cooldowns are coming back up. And then I'll fight the mini-boss in the area, also with some cooldowns, try to clear it very, very quickly. Then free all of the prisoners, and then take the portal back to the cathedral. Then I usually like to save an orb for Alaria, just to make sure that I'm very, very safe on sanity. If you have a lot of sanity or really got lucky with potions, you might be in a good spot where you can maybe use an orb once you start the encounter with Alaria. Like once you have to line of sight one of her casts, you could just drop an orb behind a pillar and then just bathe and get a bit of sanity reset like that. But I just like to go in to make sure I have all sanity available, because if you play carefully with Alaria, you shouldn't have to lose any sanity whatsoever. The only thing you have to watch out for is Alaria's kicks on Poly, making sure you have an interrupt available for that. But also the bombs, you try to kick him away from the middle of the boss arena, because that's where Alaria is always going to teleport to whenever she does her big hide behind the pillar type of an ability. However, if you do mess up one of the bomb kicks, you could always, like if let's say you land a bomb somewhere in the middle where Alaria is going to spawn to, then you will have to stand behind a pillar to kite Alaria behind that pillar in order to move the boss. So try to keep the bombs out of the middle, but even if you mess that out somehow, then you could always kite the boss behind one of the pillars towards one of the corners. As long as you have line of sight of the boss, she will have to reposition in order to be able to hit you to begin with. Otherwise, just try to play it safe as possible. You don't need to get hit by the chain stun, because that's just going to drain your sanity. Avoid the volley that she throws down with swirlies. That's also quite easy to avoid as well. Make sure you're positioned away from the eyeball as best as possible so you don't drain your sanity. But for the most part, that fight, if you walk it in with full sanity bar, even at 500 sanity without any upgrades, you should be able to take down the boss fairly easily as long as you play safe. The only thing that could really stop you is taking sanity damage, but you shouldn't really run out of cooldowns or damage before you take down the boss in most cases. But with that, as always, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give it a like. I would very much appreciate it. Also, join our Discord community, especially if you want to keep up with all the different topics regarding all the new upcoming content like patch 11.17 or even more vision discussions as well as patch notes. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.